But it is going to be interesting to see what happens to Fluxo, because here you've got in the playoffs there were only 3 teams in Brazil that didn't change their lineups from spring to summer, which is rare. One of them is Loud, and they literally have won back-to-back titles, so they're probably fine. Another one is INTZ, who shocked the world and are the most interesting story in the CBLOL this year. And then you've got Fluxo, who were a long-term kind of 2-split project from the jump, but they have 3 drastically different outcomes at this point. Loud, INTZ could still win the whole thing. This is being recorded after Fluxo are eliminated, which is part of the reason I wanted to make this. I don't even know what this is going to be. Did the camera unfocus there? Oh well. Because it's not like those 3 orgs don't have money. And here I'm kind of just speculating, but with INTZ, you've always had the power to kind of go and get big names. And with the end of the lateral talent circulation in CBLOL with franchising, that after promotion and relegation, which is kind of what happened in the LCS, and it's been a good thing. You've got just a lot of money, a lot of orgs kind of coming in and trying to make that big splash. And Los Grandes, they did. And then they just puked all over themselves in between splits, but it was sick for a while. They were 1 game away from making last split's finals, right? They almost reverse swept Pain. Because then it's where do you go from here if you're... This is too low. I need to change that. Not low enough is what I meant. I'm 5'8". You don't need me looking any shorter than that. With Fluxo, you took literally Brunsey. You took the most high-profile, the most sought-after mid laner in the transfer window. And you built nothing. Not really, right? You spent so much money bringing in Turtle, having a boot camp in South Korea with T1. There's no way that was cheap. Whereas, Loud, there's 2 examples of it, right? It's 2 orgs that threw around money and have gotten vastly different results. Is it just because you built with experienced solo laners? Because, but here's the crazy part is with Tinones, when Loud brought in Tinones from Pain, right? Pain had won their title, but Tinones he's won 4 titles, one of the most successful mid laners of all time. He's on his way to being the GOAT, I think. But he's won 4 titles. 3 of them were in the last 2 years. It was Pain, and then they skipped a split. Or they skipped 2 splits because Red won those 2, and then Loud and Loud. Before that, his first title was in 2014. It was the Kaboom Alliance year. And then you've got Robo, who Robo had won 3 titles before that point. One with Pain, one with Red, and then a third one which is escaping me right now. But point is, Fluxo kind of did that too, and they brought in an experienced topside with Tay, who was a 2-time title winner himself, and it went kaput. And then maybe it comes down to jungle. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's mental, right? I don't know. And then there's INTZ, which is the coolest story, because INTZ, they're the most successful org in CBLOL history in terms of titles anyway. They have 5. That's their chant. Everyone tries, but INTZ has 5. It rhymes in Portuguese too. That's not the way that should go. It rhymes in English too. Because of course it rhymes in Portuguese. Of course it does. But INTZ, they had imported, but only twice before. They had imported Decoy from OS and White Lotus from LATAM. But INTZ, they're the biggest org, but they largely went with Brazilian talent, right? And this year, they brought in 2 Koreans. And it's worked out great for them, but it didn't seem like it was going to. They were the third org that didn't change a roster, right? I'm very fidgety. I have ADD, but that's way too bright. They have a fan base that's really, really impatient, and they were ready to kind of crucify this long-term project after they and the rest of us, myself included, wasn't ready to crucify it. That would be mean. The fact that INTZ finished top 4 and played the closest 3-0 I've ever seen, even though they lost, this needs to focus. They played the closest 3-0 even though they lost to Pain Gaming, who might be the best team in Brazil. That's a win. That's a dub. This camera needs to do better. This camera needs to do better. It cannot keep on focusing. We're back to standings. That seemed to work okay. But I'll wrap it up here because I don't really know what I'm saying with this. I just have thoughts. I wanted to get them out. And Eric Teixeira, right? Who's the guy? He's the head of Mais Esports. He does content in Portuguese for a big journalistic org down there. And he said some thoughts which I think are very true. Is that this in a place like the CBLOL and in esports, in a minor region when you are the underdogs competitively, and when it is something like esports where you need upfront investment to make it work, right? And that's the trap that we found ourselves in esports winter, is you need money, but if it's too much money, then it's unsustainable. And if it works, what's the payoff, right? and and then everyone tries to copy it, and it becomes unsustainable, and it's a bubble. Fluxo, the Fluxo project not working like this is bad, because in theory they did everything right. In theory, they spent the money. They boot camped in literal Korea with literal T1. But then I think you have the other aspect of it, which is like, is it good, right? That's a take I've been chewing on. Is like, is it good that if you it's like, and no disrespect to any Yankees fans here, it's like in American sports, if when the Yankees are bad or when the Dodgers are bad, because it shows you can't just throw money at things, right? Or in soccer, when Flamengo, or even my Corinthians, right? Man City, Man U, Chelsea this year, you can't just throw money at the problem and expect it to work out. And that's maybe that's unfair, because that's what Fluxo did. It's not like they like spent money on the wrong things. They spent it on the right things. But the fact that they made a tweet that saying like, look, you've got to like, you've got to spend money to make money, basically, and Loud ripped them for it. Absolutely, they should have after they got eliminated. 1 boot camp, 2 splits, 1 playoff win, not series win, 1 playoff win, 2 playoff series losses. That's not good. And INTZ, I don't know what they had to pay to get ZZK and Nia, and even though, because they're the first two Korean imports in INTZ's history, this would be a win, because INTZ, or like Nia and ZZK, couldn't have been cheap, because you've got to pay a premium to get import talent here. But what was probably cheaper was the rest of the team, which was Nosferus, even though he did win a regular season title with Cade Stars in 2020 Split 1, and Ninja Kiwi, whose stock went like this and then just so far down. Excuse me. And Yampy, maybe, like he's been to a final before on the FNB and the Super Minions roster. That Vorax team that lost to Robo and Tinones and Karaoke and B-Boy, and or not B-Boy, BRTT and Lucy. So the point is, I don't know what I'm saying with this, but just keep an eye on kind of the future of these franchises. There's a big inflection point for them, and just kind of in like, and I wish I had, I like the numbers and like the roster building, kind of like the decisions that went into it, right? And see just how much money is spent where. I'm looking over at the recording. We got 12 minutes. I'm recording. I don't know how much I'm gonna make it on the internet. Probably not a lot, because this is word vomit. But I told myself I was gonna record something and put it on the internet. So here we are. You'd like to do quantity or quality over quantity, but for me, getting something out is better than nothing. And that's I think what I'm gonna tell myself. That's my story, and I'm gonna run with it.